Good day, everyone. Welcome to BRSR 360 webinar, which covers the strategy, ratings, assurance, and impact. Today, we have with us Mr. Rahul and myself, Dr. Anand Hiremat, Global Head of Sustainability at IRQS, currently known as ISSPL Limited. Today, we are going to discuss about two important topics with two perspectives. One perspective is of the consultant, and other perspective is of a certification bodies, especially when it comes to BRSR requirements, assurance, engagements. And Mr. Rahul might also cover on the rating part of it. And when we were doing a lot of audits, and EKI, represented by Mr. Rahul, does a lot of audits, they come across the challenges faced by the industry. There might be a lot of confusion when it comes to what is required to be done by the companies, especially the 1,000 listed companies, whether limited assurance applicable, reasonable applicable, whether there is a verification, validation, assurance, assessment. People have a lot of questions, a lot of understanding gaps. And we thought today we will be having this webinar to share the limited knowledge we have on this topic and to know from you people what exactly you want to learn more on BRSR. Without wasting much time, let me welcome Mr. Rahul to take over the floor. He will be the first presenter. Mr. Rahul, over to you.
Thank you, Anand sir. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sharing my screen. Just let me know if my screen is visible. Yeah. So myself, Rahul Rajawat, working as a sustainability consultant at EK Energy Services. I hold a expertise in various domains of sustainability like GHG accounting, decarbonization roadmap, SBTi target setting, and the sustainability frameworks like GRI, BRSR. Talking about our company, so EK Energy Services Limited is among the world's leading climate change, ESG, and sustainability consulting firms. And the key point is we are the only listed company in the carbon credit consulting domain. We are headquartered in Indore, and we have a client presence in over 40 plus nations. The key thing, another point is we are a best rated under CDP and SME category, and we also have our SBTi target to achieve net zero. So we not only help the companies to achieve their sustainability targets, we ourselves are also bound towards the sustainability. Now let's start with the workshop here. So just a second. Yeah. So in today's session, we will have an introduction to sustainability and BRSR. We will see about the evaluation of sustainability reporting in India. Then we will deep dive into the BRSR. I will throw some light on ESG ratings as well, because it is a key point nowadays, and the importance of BRSR. Now, this key point, why I have kept it in the end is because I will need the inputs from the audience to decide what is the importance of BRSR once we go through all these 4 points. So I will request everyone to please have full attention so that we can, at the end of the session, we can have a full understanding about why companies are going for BRSR and what is the importance. Now I would like to start this session with this very simple question about your perspective on ESG in today's world. Whether it is just a compliance requirement for a company, or a company is just ticking it as a tick box, whether they are doing because of the risk and investor expectation, or they are doing it as a long-term business strategy. So I will invite everyone to write your perceptions in the chat as per your practical observations, and then at the end of the session we can decide that whether your perspective has changed or not. So we'll give you 5 seconds to write down your opinions in the chat box. Okay, so we have one as D. It is a good thing. Anyone with B, A, or C? Okay, you can have your opinions in your minds also. Let's see at the end of the session whether it is getting a change or not. So first, let's decode this word sustainability. By the word itself, we can see that sustainability means the ability to sustain. Now, how can a company sustain? So it comes to, if you have heard about this term, triple P bottom line of sustainability, which is called as triple P model, which is based on people, profit, and planet. So in order for a company to be a sustainable company, they should have good people engagement, They need money, they need profit, and they need planet for the resources. Once this term was coined, gradually it turned into the topic of ESG, which is environment, social, and governance. The planet part, we can say that it turned to environment, the people part turned to social, and the profit and the overall governance structure of the company turned into the governance part. The key thing here is, in the ESG, the governance not talk only about the general governance measures, but also how the governance is done in aspects of social and the environment part. This is the key thing here. Now, suppose there is one company who decided that we want to publish our ESG performance or a ESG report. Now, what to publish? The question comes: what to publish, how to publish, what information to publish. For this, we need some standards or framework. These standards or frameworks which are globally accepted are, it can be Global Reporting Initiative, it can be CSRD, which is applicable in European Union, and also in India, it is Business Responsibility and Sustainability Report. Through this slide, we have the understanding of the word sustainability, how companies want to report it, and if they want to report it, how they can, which type of standard they can use. Now, it is not a new thing in India that sustainability reporting has started. There is an evaluation. So first, in 2009, Ministry of Corporate Affairs introduces voluntary guidelines on corporate social responsibility, that is called as CSR. Then in 2011, they came up with National Voluntary Guidelines, which was called as NVCs. Then they introduced BRR. Currently it is BRSR. Firstly, it was BRR. And mostly in this, it was only qualitative KPIs, not the quantitative one. And it was mandatory only for the top 1,000 listed companies. Then in 2014, CSR became compulsory. Then this top 100 requirement was gradually became top 500 and then to top 1,000 in 2019. Then in 2018, BSE came up with the guidance document on ESG disclosures. This was the first time when this term ESG came into place. Then we had in 2019 National Guidelines of Responsible Business Conduct, which is called as NGRBCs. This is the primary framework on this whole our BRSR is based. So this is a key. We need to have a very good understanding of this. Then MCA came up with Business Responsibility and Sustainability Framework for the listed and unlisted companies. In 2021, it became a mandate for top 1,000 listed companies. And then in 2023, there came something like BRSR 4. So now we have full understanding of how the sustainability reporting has evolved in India. The key point here is NGRBCs, BRSR, and BRSR 4. So let's see what are these points. Now let's talk about national guidelines on responsible business conducts. Now, these guidelines are based on 9 principles. Very easy to understand. And if we can understand this, we will also be able to understand what can be the key performance indicators for these 9 principles. So let's understand this one by one. First, as a shareholder, as a stakeholder, or as a common people, you want that any company which is getting operated in your country should be ethical, should be transparent, and should be accountable. This is the first principle as per NGRBC, that the company should conduct their practices in the ethical, transparent, and accountable manner. Secondly, product life cycle sustainability. So any business which is providing any product or any service should do it in a manner that throughout the life cycle of their operations, it should be sustainable. Third thing, apart from these 2 things, the third thing is employee well-being. So company should definitely take care of its employees, because these are the main engine behind the working of any company. Fourth would be the stakeholder engagement. Company should regularly engage with their stakeholders. Fifth, company should be aware of the human rights. They should take into account the human rights of their employees. Also, they should be worried about the human rights practices across their value chain. So if this is a company, these are their supplier and these are the customer. In their upstream and downstream life cycle as well, they should be concerned about the human rights. Then comes the 6th principle, which is very important. It talks about the environmental protection. It talks about emissions part. It talks about water part. It talks about waste part. how the company is utilizing these resources, and how it is impacting the outside environment. Seventh part is responsible public policy and advocacy. The company should engage in responsible public policy as well, which can shape further policies of the government. Then whatever work a company is doing, they should do it in a manner which talks about inclusive growth and development. So they should not be only concerned about their profit and all. They should also be concerned about the inclusive growth and development of the country, the state, in the locations in which they are operating. Then the ninth point, obviously the customer value. How the company is maintaining the relationship with their customer is another key point here. So these are the 9 principles on which National Guidelines on Responsible Business Conduct is based. And on these 9 principles, the BRSR has been framed. We know that these are the 9 principles as per which the report has to be made. But what should be the structure of the report? So it is very simple. It is divided into 3 sections. First is section A, section B, and section C. Section A is a general disclosure, which talks about general of the company. Section B is about the management and process disclosures. It talks mainly about the policies of the company. Then this is the most important one, section C, which talks about principle-wise KPIs of the company. Now, this KPIs is mainly divided into 2 parts. First is the essential indicator. Second is the leadership indicators. Something here, a subset of essential indicators are BRSR core. These are all the quantitative KPIs which has to be reported under essential indicators, and also it is mandatory for the companies to do the assurance of it, which will be discussed in the second part of the webinar. So I hope the structure of BRSR is clear from here. Now let's see the timeline of BRSR core. So reporting of BRSR core is mandatory for top 1000 listed companies since 23-24. Reasonable assurance has to be done for top 150 companies from 23-24, top 50 from 24-25, top 500 from 25-26, and so on. But as of now, there is also relaxation on which we will talk in the further slides. Then it's not only important that the company should only report about their own operations. Companies should also report about their value chain, basically their upstream value chain, that is their suppliers. So along with their own BRSR core KPIs, companies should also report on their value chain disclosures for BRSR core KPIs, which is mandatory from 24-25 for top 50 companies. Then it talks about the limited assurance of their value chain disclosures as well, which is mandatory from 25-26. This is the rough timeline I tried to show you for the BRSR core, not only for the companies, but for their value chain disclosures as well. Now let's talk about what are the core BRSR core KPIs, and these are the 9 KPIs which the company have to report. First is about the GHG footprint, scope 1 emissions, scope 2 emissions, and the intensity. Intensity can be in terms of revenue or it can be in terms of the physical output. Scope 3 is not a part of BRSR core. It is a part, nor the part of essential indicators. It is a part of leadership indicators. Second is the water footprint, which talks about total consumption, the intensity, and the discharge. If a company knows how much amount of water it is consuming in a year, how much it is discharging, we will come to know about the here one more thing, water withdrawal will also be a part of it. Company have to report on the withdrawal part, how much it is discharging. Once you subtract withdrawal from discharge, the company can able to report on the total consumption part. Then the energy footprint, what is the total energy consumed, the renewable share, and the energy intensity. Then the waste part, what amount of waste is getting generated, waste recovered, waste disposed. Basically in the waste part, company need to report that if they are generating certain amount of waste, how much they are recovering or reusing or recycling, or they are directly getting disposed into landfill or into incineration, or it can be any other type of disposal method. So this whole structure should be followed. Fifth indicator is about the employee well-being and safety. So how much amount a company is spending on the well-being of the employees. During the operation, are there any permanent disabilities? What is the lost time injury frequency rate? And if there is any fatality. In this indicator, these 4 parameters company have to report. In terms of gender diversity, they have to report what is the gross wages female percentage. So if the company is paying 100 rupees as the wages, out of this 100 rupees, suppose 20 rupees is going to the females, it will be 20%. Company have to report. It basically tells that what is percentage of what percentage of females have been employed by the company. Second, they also have to report upon the POSH complaints, if any, in the operations of the company. Another indicator is inclusive development. It talks about if the company is sourcing something, purchasing something, out of this total purchase, how much has been sourced from MSME or local sourcing. Also, how much jobs the company have created in smaller towns. So if the company have employed 100 people, or in which location the company is having its operation, they have to present that if the operations are in rural communities, urban, semi-urban, metropolitan, and all. So this whole bifurcation company have to use. Then talking about customer and supplier fairness, company have to report upon the customer data breaches and the accounts payable as well. So if there is any breach on the customer data, company have to report about it. And then the business openness, about the trading concentration and RPTs. So if company is making any purchase through trading houses or something, company have to report it data. And if the company is doing businesses with their related parties, suppose there is a company and its customer is a related party of some board of director or something, if it is they are related to one or the other manner, company have to disclose it, and that business what they are doing, they have to report in the related party transaction. These are the 9 BRSR core parameters which company have to go through assurance as well. So it is very important from that point of view. Now let's see the structure of the BRSR report. So section A talks about the general disclosures. So if you can see, these are all the general important information of the company. And here it also talks about name of the assurance provider and the type of assurance obtained for the. Here the key point is company have to very specifically define the reporting boundary, whether it is a standalone basis or a consolidated basis. This is a very key point. Secondly, once company decides it, company have to be consistent in regards to its reporting boundary. So for example, for 24-25, they have selected consolidated reporting. For 25-26, they should also go about the same until unless there is a very specific reason. So section A talks about the only generic information of the companies. Section B talk about mainly the policy and management processes and the governance leadership oversight. So if you can see here, it specifically talks whether your entity's policies cover each principle and its core elements. That 9 principles we have talked about. Company should design the policies in a manner that all these principles are covered. And the key point here is this policy should be approved by board. If it is not approved, it doesn't represent that the policies are quite regularly followed in the company or not. Then whether the entity has translated the policies into procedures. Having a policy is not enough. You should translate it into actions as well. Then do the enlisted policies extend to your value chain partners. So it is not, suppose you are having a policy that we do not employ any child labor in our operations. Company should also have a policy that they prohibit child labor even in their supply chains. Company should have their supplier code of conduct in which it should be strictly mentioned that they have no tolerance regarding child labor and human rights issues. Then if they have any certification, they can mention here. Then it talks about specific goals and targets set by the entity in terms of ESG. So here company have to report the information about their ESG related targets. And then also, once you have the policy, you have the procedure, you have the target, the fourth thing which comes is your performance. After implementing all these things, what is your performance against the targets? Company have to publish it here. Then the governance, leadership, and oversight. The statement by your director responsible for the business responsibility report. There should be a statement of your board of directors, how they purview the concept of sustainability. Then the details of highest authority responsible for implementation part. Companies generally, if you can see, the big companies, they have their CSO in place, Chief Sustainability Officer, which is the implementation part of sustainability. Then does the entity have a specified committee of the board of directors responsible for decision making? These are all the practices that one is expected to have if they are claiming that they are a sustainable company. Then the key part, section C. So this is the structure of section C. So for each section, it starts with the name of the principal. And here, the principal 1. Then it talks about the essential indicators question. And then it talks about the leadership indicator question. So for each principle, first is the principal name, the principal one. It is divided into two sections. First is the essential indicators, and second is the leadership indicator. Essential is mandatory to disclose. Leadership indicator is optional. Now your question would be, a company publishes its suppose BRSR report. They choose to omit this question. Let's say this question number 1. Then how they will face the repercussion? So whenever a listed company publishes their annual report, they have to submit this on their stock exchange on which they are listed. Along with it, to MCA, they have to fill one XBRL data sheet as well. It is an Excel sheet that company have to fill the information. This is a screenshot of the sheet. Once you, so here you can see in principle 6, it talks about essential indicators. These are all the essential indicators. Once the company fills information, in order to get that Excel sheet validated, they have to click on these options called as validate. Once you click on this option, if everything is fine, the Excel sheet will show that it is ready for the submission. But if it is not fine, it will give you this red indications. You can see here. Here, if you can see, I have deliberately choose not to input this information. If I will not input this information, it will not accept my Excel file, and hence I will not be able to submit this to Stock Exchange or the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. This is the key point to note, that it's not only that the company have just to publish the BRSR, they also have to submit this Excel file to their Stock Exchange and Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So they cannot choose to not provide the information. Whether the information provided is correct or not is a different thing, but at least they should start reporting on it. Whether the information is accurate, how much is accurate, is mainly defined by the assurance part, but at least the reporting part is taken care here. Now let's see one by one what are the principles. I will not go into too detail, but let's to have a fair idea about what can be the data points. I'm going through it. So talking about the first part, which is ethical, transparent, and accountable conduct. In essential indicators, it talks about coverage of training and awareness programs on the principles, the 9 principles, whether you are providing training to your board, key management personnel, employees or workers or not, disclosure of the monetary and non-monetary fine. Now here, company also have to disclose if they have paid any fines. What kinds of fines it be? For example, for a listed company in India, there is a requirement that at least 1/3 of their board of directors should be independent director. Now there was one company in which the independent director left, resigned. Now there is a timeline in which the company should complete the quorum of the independent directors. If they fail to do so, they are incurred by some fines. So if you go through the BRSR reports of the company, you can come across this types of information as well, at what kind of fines have been levied of the company. Then if the fines have been levied, have they appealed in the court or something regarding the fines, then the company should have an anti-corruption or anti-bribery policy in place. Then number of directors, key management personnel, employees or workers against whom disciplinary action was taken, whether for bribery or corruption, they have to disclose it. Complaints received on conflict of interest on directors or KMPs, and the corrective actions taken on fines. So if the fine has been levied, what corrective actions company has taken, that in future there is no action like that. These are all the essential indicators. The leadership indicators talks about awareness programs conducted for valuation partners. Here it talks about their own operations. The leadership indicators talks about their value chain and their processes in place to avoid and manage conflict of interest involving members of the board. If there came up that there is a conflict of interest, suppose in their purchasing related to any board of directors involved in that case, so what is the procedures in place to manage it? Secondly, talking about the sustainable and safe goods and services. So in essential indicators, it talks about percentage of R&D and CapEx investment in technologies, improving the environmental and social impacts. What percentage of money have been levied in the R&D and CapEx investment, company has to disclose it. Also the procedures for sustainable sourcing and percentage of input source sustainably. So company first of all should have a sustainable sourcing policy in place. Otherwise, they cannot have a procedure. First is the policy, second is the procedure, then they have to disclose that what amount of inputs they have, what amount of purchases they have made from the mainly the suppliers which are having sustainable practices. Third is process to safely reclaim products for reuse, recycling, and disposal across plastics, e-waste, hazardous waste, and other waste. The company should have a processes to safely reclaim their products if they are able to, if they want to reuse or recycle their products. Secondly, they have to disclose if the extended producer responsibility is applicable on the company and the EPR plan submitted to the Pollution Control Board. It cannot be submitted. It is not applicable to all the companies, but if it is applicable, company have to clearly disclose it. This is about the essential indicators. Next thing is about the leadership indicators. So here the company have to report whether they have conducted the life cycle assessment of their product or services. So life cycle assessment, if you heard about the term product carbon footprint, plus other environmental aspects like eutrophication, acidification, ozone depletion potential. So if the company has conducted any study on this part, the company has to publish their reports. Then the significant social or environmental concern identified through LCA and what actions company has taken to mitigate it. Then the percentage of recycled or reused input material to total material used in the production service. So if the company has used some recycled or input material in their production process, company has to report on it. Then the quantity of products and packaging reclaimed at the end of life. So if the company is also reclaiming any product or a packaging material, they should also report on that part. With the principle 3, which talks about well-being of employees. So it talks about what coverage of employees have been covered through health insurance, accident insurance, maternity, paternity benefits, daycare benefits, and all. And also about the safety part. What is the facility? What if any kind of permanent disabilities have been occurred? All this information company has to publish in their essential indicators. In the leadership indicators, company have to publish about life insurance, compensatory package in the event of death of an employee. Report. Now here we are concerned about this statutory dues for their own operations. Here it talks about dues are deducted and deposited by value chain partners as well. So all this activity should also be covered by their value chain partners. Then rehabilitation and suitable employment for workers suffering high consequence injuries. So if during the operations, if the worker has suffered from any high injury, what measures the company has taken to help them. Then transition assistance programs for continued employability and management of career endings. Assessment of value chain partners on health and safety practices. Company should also do the assessment of their suppliers on the aspect of health and safety practices. If the assessment is done, if they found any discrepancies or the actions which need corrective actions, the company should report on that as well, that what corrective actions they have taken. Coming to the fourth part, in the essential indicators, company have to describe what process they have taken for identifying their key stakeholders, which is applicable for them, and then what is the list of stakeholder group identified. Now, here the key part is, if a company is doing mortality assessment, they also have to do stakeholder engagement as well. That is why the principle 4 is directly or indirectly related to the mortality part. Then, in the leadership indicators part, what process for consultation between stakeholders and the board on economic, environmental, and social topics. So if suppose there is any stakeholder, they have raised any concerns for the operations of the company, what is the consulting mechanism, how the stakeholders input are being incorporated, and how the company is mitigating on that, all they have to report in the leadership indicator part. Then the fifth principle is about the promotion of human rights. So first of all, the company should provide training on human rights issues and policies for all of their employees. Then it talks about minimum wages. The company should pay minimum wages to all its employees. Then about the median remuneration of POD employees and workers. So it takes about how much and top management is earning as compared to the employee. So this is a key aspect. What is the focal point for addressing human rights impacts? Also, the company should have an internal mechanism to redress human rights grievances. So again, this is the very key part here. Then if there is any complaints on sexual harassment, discrimination, child labor, forced labor, wages, or other human rights issues, company should have a platform for it. And then they should also have a corrective actions in place for all the issues that have been highlighted. Then coming to the leadership indicators, business process modified or introduced as a result of addressing human rights grievances that the company should report. Also, the company should undertake human rights due diligence. So they have to report that if they have undergone any human rights due diligence, what is the scope and what is the coverage of that. Secondly, accessibility of premises for differently able visitors. So if there is any visitor which is differently able, if they are able to access the premises of the company, if the company is having provisions for that, then the company should have the assessment of their value chain partners on sexual harassment, discrimination, forced labor, wages, and others, all the aspects of human rights. They should do the assessment of their value chain, and then they have to report what the corrective actions they have taken if they identified any discriminancies in their assessment of their value chain partners. Sixth part is the protection and restoration of the environment. So here in the essential indicators part, company have to report on the energy consumption, on their GHG footprint, on their water consumption, on their waste part as well. And then in the leadership indicators, they will have to provide the breakup of all these measures. The key point here is the scope 3. So scope 1 and scope 2, if we are aware of the GHG emissions, comes in the essential indicators part, and the scope 3 comes in the leadership indicators part. Then the company should also name number of affiliations with trade and industry chambers as part of their public advocacy, list of top 10 trade and industry chambers, and also the corrective actions taken on issues related to anti-competitive behavior if they have done so. Regarding the leadership indicators, company have to report on the public policy position advocated by the entity with method of advocacy, public availability of the information, and frequency of board review. So if the company is having any position on the public advocacy, they should publish this information in the public as well. Next is about the inclusive growth and equitable development. Now, in the essential indicators, company have to publish information on the social impact assessment of their project. If there is any project that they have undertaken in the current FY, and if they have done any social impact, then because of that project, if there is any ongoing rehabilitation or resettlement program, they will have to report on it. Then the mechanism to receive and redress community grievances. So if there is any grievances from the community, they should have a mechanism that they can report it. And the percentage input materials was from the medium and small enterprises and the small producers, which is part of BRSR core as well. In the leadership part, they have to report on the action taken to mitigate negative social impacts as per the part of this assessment. What actions they have taken, they have to report here. Then the CSR projects taken, they have to report here. If they have any procurement policy for the marginalized or vulnerable groups, they have to report here. If they have taken any benefit, they have registered any intellectual property, which is taking benefit of some traditional knowledge of that community, so they should publish this information. And if there is any court case or something or corrective action has been taken regarding this intellectual property, they should submit that information as well. Now the ninth part is regarding the responsible engagement with customers. So regarding this, in the essential indicators, companies should have mechanisms to receive and respond to consumer complaints, turnover of products, service, carrying information on environmental and social parameters. So companies should have a clear information on their products regarding how this product is environmentally and socially sustainable. This is a key requirement of this part. Secondly, companies should have a framework on policy of cybersecurity regarding mainly the data of their customers. And then the corrective actions on advertising, cybersecurity and data privacy, product recalls and regulatory action. So if there is any product recall or regulatory action, what corrective action company has taken, they should report on it. Then in the leadership indicator, company should very clearly disclose channels and platform where the customer can find the information of their product and service. Step taken to inform and educate customers how to use the product responsibly. Mechanism to inform consumers of any risk of disruption or discontinuation. If they are not able to provide the product to the customers, they should clearly report that what is the reason behind it and what is the mechanism to report this information. Then display of product information over and above what is mandated. So first is the compliance thing, second is this ESG. What information they are publishing on their product which is beyond their mandate part, and then they should also publish information on the number of data breach instances involving personally identified information of the customers. These are the part of the leadership indicators. Now the question comes, how can companies fulfill their BRSR requirements? The first thing is they should have a very good understanding of the framework which is BRSR. Then the key point which is data collection. Here, many a times, what we incur is companies do not have the idea, they do not have the SPOCs, they do not have any ESG committee in place. They are not able to decide from where we will get this data. So this is the key point where the company faces the issue. Third is the stakeholder management. So here the company comes the part of materiality assessment. Company should actively engage with their stakeholders during the materiality assessment. They should also go about doing surveys and interviews to identify their material topics. Then they should have a very robust reporting strategy in place. They should ensure all the compliances are in place. For example, for the company, if the requirement is of BRSR code, they should ensure that at least all the indicators of BRSR they are publishing. Now, once companies going through these reports, they should have a continuous improvement and assurance plan in place as well. So if the company can robustly follow this 6-step plan, the company is on a very good track of reporting their sustainability report as per BRSR. Now, suppose you have gone through the sustainability report of a company and you come across the fact that company A is having low GHG emission and excellent social practices, but they don't have any supplier code of conduct. Company B again have low GHG emissions, excellent governance practices, but employs child labor. The company C, which is having excellent governance and social practices, but no count of GHG emissions. And you are an investor. In which company you will invest? Company A, B, or C? So here you can see that no company is ideal in terms of sustainability. Everyone has its own weaknesses. Here the concept of ESG ratings comes into place. So for BRSR, as per BRSR, 19 ESG rating providers has been mandated by SEBI. Out of this 19, only 5 points in category 1, which can do a comprehensive ESG rating, and 14 are in category 2, which can only do scope-wise energy rating, cannot provide a comprehensive ESG score. Now, let's see some of the examples. For CRISIL, this is the ESG rating. I have highlighted the name of the companies. So this is the company, score 59, they got adequate rating, 42 got below average rating, and other company which got strong rating. Now, many a times, many clients come to us that, sir, our independent director have asked us that why our rating is below average, and how we can go into the adequate category or strong category. And more than 70, it would be leadership category. So nowadays, ESG is not just about the compliance requirement. Compliance gets fulfilled once you report all the mandatory disclosures. But in order to have upper hand with respect to your peers, you should also have a very good ESG rating. So here is the example of the 3 companies having 3 differently scores and categories. Third is the NSE, Sustainability Ratings Analytics. So here you can see, again, there are different ratings, ESG rating 61, 73, 73, as per the sector of the company. This information is publicly available. Any stakeholder of the company can go and see this score, and they can ask directly that why your company is performing low in terms of ESG ratings. Second is Care Edge. So here you can see they provide ratings in terms of Care Edge ESG1, ESG+. Here they have different bandwidth. For E1+ means 80 to 100 and so on. So these are a brief idea about the ESG ratings. So here if you can see, I think we are at the end of our session here. So if everyone have a good idea about the BRSR now, is a big question. What is the importance of BRSR reporting in the current era? Enhances transparency, builds stakeholder trust, drives growth, ensures regulatory compliance, or all of them. I think now everyone will agree that it should be the. It's not only about the compliance, but it's important for the company for its overall future strategy as well. So how EKI can support? So we provide end-to-end BRSR reporting services to the company. So starting from the data collection about how to set the targets and how to improve the ratings we provide in the companies, and then the overall spectrum of our services regarding GHG emissions, net zero consultancy, ESG reporting, and so on. Yes, thank you so much. Now I will hand it over to Anand sir regarding the assurance part.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rahul, for a very comprehensive presentation covering the history of BRSR, what are the core requirements, whom it is applicable in 26 to 27 financial year. It is applicable to 1,000 listed companies, and as well as covering the supplier requirements as well. Apart from that, you have explained each of the category in detail, plus also provided an insight about the rating systems and the issues. So this is all about the perspective of an EKI, like how exactly they will be expecting and what kind of challenges they will face from the clients. That client has an expectations to increase the rating, client has an expectations to meet into the highest requirements. But there are several gaps where client might be doing certain aspects in a very good format, and in a governance format, they might be falling short. So this has been covered in the first phase of this particular webinar. The second phase of this webinar, which I'll be going to be focusing on the issues what an auditor will face, right? When this particular BRSR report is ready and they start approaching the third-party independent verifiers, what exactly happened at that stage. So let me share my presentation over here. Hope my presentation is visible to everyone. Great. Perfect. Let me check. Yes, it's visible. Yeah. People know us as Indian Registered Quality Systems, IRQS, but last month we have become ISSPL Limited. We are a limited company now, and we are now onwards called as ISSPL Limited. To give a big background about ourselves, so that this will give an idea about why ISSPL is talking about an auditing part or a third-party independent assurance part, because we are a 50-year-old company. We are basically called as Indian Register of Shipping. We are incorporated in 1985 by a Mudiyar committee constituted by the Government of India. But in 1993, looking at the requirements coming from the industries for different certifications, a new vertical, a division was formed in IRS called Indian Register Quality Systems, which was mainly aiming for the ISO certification and training services. Later in 2014, a separate entity was further created called IR Class Systems and Solutions Provided, and IRQS became a part of it. Currently, we are called as ISSPL Limited from 4th of May 2026. Our portfolio, if you look at, we have offices around 44 places all over the world. We have over 200 plus in-house auditors, about 1,200 plus employees, and 10,000 plus clients we have served as on today. These are the location of our offices worldwide and as well as in India. What exactly we do under IRQS? As I said, we basically started with an ISO certification, ISO 9000, 14000, 45000, and then we moved on to the food. We do food testing. We have got over 2 laboratories. We do a lot of coal testing as well in that. And later onwards, our portfolio started increasing quite big, right from cybersecurity to IITF to different certifications and services. And as on today, we have provided huge number of trainings in last 3 decades, mainly focusing on ISO standards. And sustainability is something we started a few years ago, and this particular department is headed by me. So what we do in a nutshell is the certifications, and we have a sustainability division which is providing an A to G service. It might be an assurance, it might be a certification, it might be a training. We are also into cybersecurity audits. I'm not covering that because the auditor, the webinar is not focused on that. We are into food audits, as I told you. We are into testing. We have got our own NABCB approved laboratories. We are into trainings. We have been accredited by NABCB, National Accreditation Board for certification body, especially when it comes to sustainability. We are ISO 14065 and ISO 17029 accredited verification and validation body in India. So for verification and validation, we have an accreditation already with us. Apart from that, from the same NABCB, we have accreditations for environment, occupational health and safety, energy management, information security, coal sampling, Ayush, medical devices, audits, testing, and rest of that. From RBA also, we have got certification, accreditation. We have accreditation from ANAB, IITF, responsible steel certifications. We are the first accredited body in India when it comes to responsible plastic management certifications. So now coming back to the main topic, BRSR, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting. What exactly we do an assessment, we do an verification, we do an assurance. But these three words have different meanings. When clients comes to us, they sometimes use a word, so we want to do a validation and we want to do verification and validation together. So it takes a lot of time for us to make the client understand what exactly are they looking for, or we will be having multiple meetings with the client to really know what they are looking for and what they are asking. Let me deep dive into it. If you look at the sustainability framework today in the market, in the environment, most of the sustainability reports, it might be BRSR, GRI, TCFD, or integrated reporting. You will see one thing that when you talk about an environment, most of the people will be coming up with an materiality topic called climate change and carbon emissions, energy efficiency, waste reduction, biodiversity conservation, water stewardship. Social, they'll talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, community engagement, supply chain ethics. When it comes to governance, ethical conduct, transparency, anti-bribery, so on and so forth. But what standard should be used is a big question. When the clients approach to us and they say that we want our sustainability report or a BRSR report to be having an assurance, right? So we have to work with the client to make them understand whether they fall under a limited assurance or a reasonable assurance. I'll give an idea about what is limited and reasonable later, but there is a lot of argument going on with a lot of what standard has to be used. The ISE, which is an international standard for assurance engagement, 3000 is a number which has been revised recently. Because the terminology used by BRSR is about limited and reasonable assurance. The limited and reasonable terms comes under ISE 3000. And even when you look at the BRSR core, it directs to the ISE 3000 revised as a standard to be used against the verification of the BRSR reports. Now the question comes whether we have to use the AA1000 AS standard, which is accountability 1000 assurance standard version 3, or we need to use ISE 3000 revised standard. I did a quick comparison of that to give a brief idea. Now May 31st is the deadline for the audits to be completed and to be submitted to the BRSR, especially for the financial report of 25 and 26, which is applicable for 500 companies for the BRSR core. The same webinar, if you consider it for planning the audits for say 26-27 of financial year, where 1000 listed companies need to do a BRSR core mandatory third-party assurance, which is a reasonable assurance for them. So when I did this particular comparison, you'll see that AA1000 standard, which is the version number 3, is basically for sustainability principles focused on assurance. Whereas ISE 3000 is basically for the evidence-based assurance standard for non-financial information. Because BRSR is looking for the third-party assurance, and assurance has to be backed up by the evidences and the risk assessment. See, ISE 3000 fits well into it. In BRSR core, we look into GHG emissions, scope 1 and 2 as well for the core verification. That's why we can include ISE 3410, which is specifically for GHG disclosures. So ISE 3000 revised for an entire BRSR core, and ISE 3410 for the GHG verification we can plug in. But whereas AA1000 AS, first we need to understand what are the principles involved in AA1000. AA1000 mostly talks about inclusivity, materiality, responsiveness, and impact. I could see some questions or something in between. Let me check. All right. So somebody is asking me to go quick bit slow. Okay, I'll be slow in that. Thank you for feedback. So 8,000 AS, if you look at it, basically has a principle of inclusivity, materiality, responsiveness, and impact. Inclusivity is all about whether the stakeholders are being heard or not, whether decisions are only taken in the boardroom or all the people, stakeholders concerned are included or not. Materiality is about the significant topics covered or not. Responsiveness is how transparent the company is when it's going to respond to something. Impact is whether the company is measuring, monitoring, and looking at the impact that it has on the materiality topic it has chosen. So the strong impacts, if you look at on the 8,000 standard, is about the stakeholder engagement, right? So now in BRSR, we are also covering for the top 250 listed companies, a limited assurance is required for them when it comes to sustainability for the supply chain, upstream and downstream sales and purchase. In that one, they say that 2% or more than 2% of your supply chain, upstream and downstream sales and purchase, has to be included. And among this 2% or about 2%, 75% of the disclosure needs to be done. So in that case, if a top 250 company is going for an assurance, which is a core reasonable assurance, they can ask these assurance providers to plug in 8,000 as well, because stakeholder engagement is coming into the picture. So this ISE 3000 is basically from the International Auditing and Assurance Standard Board. It is globally accepted. And this is the standard where it talks about limited and reasonable assurance. Because BRSR core, as I said, talks about reasonable assurance, most of the companies straight away ask for ISE 3000 for it. And it is more of the evidence-based. It has controls, it has materiality, and it has also a risk assessment. So in summary, the 8,000 is most basically the principle centered. It's qualitative and strategic. It focuses more on the stakeholders, whereas ISE 3000 focus more on the evidence centric, control based, and audit oriented. So if you look at the regulatory recognition point of view, ISE 3000 has an upper edge compared to 8,000. If you look at a stakeholder engagement viewpoint of view, of course, 8,000 has an higher edge compared to ISE 3000. If you look at a data verification rigor, ISE 3000 will be better because it works on the evidence-based formula and as well as the risk assessment. If you look at suitability of BRSR core, in my opinion, as of now, if you are not 250 top listed, you're just going for a BRSR core among the 1,000 listed companies, it's better you just go for ISE 3000. Yeah, BRSR aligns very well with ISE 3000. The recommended approach, if you ask me now, if you're a top 200, 250 company, primary focus should be ISE 3000 as a basis of verification standard. If your GHG metrics are included, ISE 3410 should be used. 8,000 should be used as a supplement in case of stakeholder evaluation. Let's not go to the benefit. So if you do ISE 3000 plus 8,000 in the statement, the assurance statement, it can easily come as that the certification body or assurance provider has done an engagement in accordance with ISE 3000 revised and also considered the principles of 8,000 AS version 3 while evaluating the materiality, stakeholder inclusivity, and responsiveness and impact. So what is the conclusion we have when it comes to choice of standard? Is ISE 3000 for sure, plus 8,000 AS V3 wherever applicable. Now, I told you that people will always have a doubts on what is limited assurance, what is reasonable assurance. A limited assurance is very simple, that the word itself suggests that it has a moderate level of confidence. If you are providing BRSR disclosures and asking for a limited assurance, the audit will be sample based and the calculations or the data will not be rigorously checked. It doesn't mean that limited assurance is not the best way to assure it. It's still a third-party assurance, but there is a 5% of acceptance when it comes to materiality errors. So there might be a 5% margin of error accepted when it comes to limited assurance. That's why when a limited assurance statement you see, which is coming from a certification body or assurance provider, it always says that it starts with a negative tone, saying that nothing has come to the attention of the verifier. Nothing has come to an attention. It means there might be an error, but we could not, when I verified, we did not get that error, right? So it starts with a negative tone, and it has a limited data gathering exercise, and it focus more literally on the materiality misstatements. It means that any data is misrepresented, any statement is misrepresented, it will be focusing more on that. As reasonable assurance, if you look at, reasonable assurance provides the highest level of assurance for the BRSR disclosures. That's why for the 1,000 listed companies for financial year 26-27, it is mandatory to get a third party independent assurance for the reasonable core. So this is the highest level of assurance. Of course, it is not absolute. Why I say absolute? Absolute means it cannot say that there are zero errors, but it says that the chances of errors are less. It's kind of an highest level of assurance we can say. And it's the sustainability statement. If you look at it, says that it starts saying that in our opinion, okay, in our opinion means then the assurance statement starts with a positive tone that no material misstatement has been identified. So this is more of a rigorous audit. Field visits have been will be conducted. All the data will be verified, and a more rigorous audit will be done. That's why it's called as a reasonable assurance, and as well as the margin of error accepted over here is less than or equal to 1%. What are the auditing principles? If you ask me, like an auditor coming for you to check your GRI BRSR report, what exactly they will be checking? Whether they will be having few principles in their mind. The first principle, if you look at BRSR, is transparency. That's what Mr. Rahul also came up saying, that we must be transparent in your approach. That's why we are making the disclosures, right? So the auditor will be checking the transparency in your methodology, transparency in your data collection, transparency in your limitations, that you're very clear about what are the limitations, what are the assumptions created. So transparency is the first principle. Second is the accuracy, whether the data provided by you is accurate, it's precise, and free from material statements. Third is the comprehensiveness. Comprehensive means all material topics have been considered, all material ESG aspects have been considered. No data is purposely omitted. It means that, for example, you say that you are doing the GHG scope 1 and 2. In scope 1, you will get stationary, you will get mobile emissions, and there might be a chance that you are consuming a lot of fuel, diesel for the DG set. You have a data for January month, February month you did not collect, March you did not collect, suddenly you are showing the June month data. So there is no consistency and comprehensiveness in that. Or you are omitting the DG consumptions purposefully so that your scope 1 emissions comes down. So comprehensiveness is something which the auditor will be checking. Second is the consistency. Consistency is that data has been periodically gathered and there is no gap in data collection. Conservativeness, it means that there is a tendency that the company would like to show less emissions, scope 1 and scope 2 emissions, but more reductions. So conservative means you should not be overshowing the reductions and undershowing the emissions. So the auditor will be very much looking at the conservativeness, whether the value is 55 and you want to show 50, or the reduction of the GHG mitigation is about 50, but you want to show 100. So that conservation also will be looked at by the auditors, and as well as the materiality topics which has been provided. Interchangeability of the topics which we see, basically not the topics, the wordings is assessment, verification, and assurance. And most of the people come to us asking that, no, I want an assessment, I want an verification, I want an assurance. In a simple terms, if you look at as of now in 2025 or 26, you only have to remember two terms. One is assessment and assurance, because verification is attached with the assurance. Assessment, if you look at in general terms, the meaning of assessment is to look at where exactly the company stands, right? So it's more of a gap assessment. That's why I call it gap assessment. So you see whether I want to achieve a BRSR core, but currently I want to see whether what I need to do to achieve the BRSR core. That becomes an assessment. Verification is based basically the verification of the data, whether the data is represented correctly or not. Whereas assurance is all about the statements. Assurance is all about the certificate which the assurance provider will provide. Assurance is all about that. In 2026, I said, remember the words assessment and assurance. Why? I'll tell you in next slide. You might not be able to read these wordings, but bear with me. In 2024, the industry's standard forum was formed by Security Exchange Board of India, which is involving SOCAM, CII, and FICCI. These people started and made their own industry standard note, which can be used to do an audit against the BRSR disclosures. It means in 2026-27 or 24-25 or 25-26, what you can do is the assessment as well. Assessment is the standard followed for assessment is going to be the technical guidance provided by the particular industry standard forum ISF. So if you ask an auditor or the third party assurance provider that you want to go with assessment, it means that you want to go with the BRSR committee, which is the formed by the BRSR Industry Standard Forum. You are going to go with that particular standard. The moment you ask assurance, it means you are going ISAE 3000 standard, because assurance here, limited and reasonable come into picture. Whereas when you say assessment, there is no limited or there is no reasonable. There is only an assessment report, or at max there is a certificate, right? But when you go to the assurance, it's very clearly that you are going with the ISAE 3000 standard, and you're going for the limited or reasonable assurance. One thing we need to keep in mind, for the 1,000 listed companies as per SEBI in India for 26-27 financial year, it is mandatory that they have to get the BRSR core reasonable assurance. And for the top 250 listed companies, along with BRSR core reasonable assurance, they need to get the limited assurance for their supply chain. Clear? Yeah. So this is all the difference between ISF and the ISAE 3000, how exactly they are both are different. I've already given you an idea about a summary of this particular table. I will not go line by line, but the summary of this is that if you are going for an assessment, it is accepted. The 1,000 companies can directly go for assessment, but the standard going to be followed is as per the ISF standard. And there can be an audit report or at max a certificate. And when you go for the assurance engagement with ISAE 3000, it is going to be reasonable assurance. So most of the people, before we go for the audit, people usually ask us, sir, what exactly are you going to check? What evidences do we need to show during the audit? This is the most common question as a certification body, verifier, or assurance provider. We get this question. We openly tell that what exactly will be expected from the company. Like the expectations will be whatever disclosures you are making in your BRSR core, all those disclosures must be backed up by the evidence. And that evidence, just few glances I would like to tell you here for the participants. Like if I am looking for an energy consumption, you have made an energy consumption disclosure. What basically I'll be looking at is like, electricity bills. So we'll say that, okay, show me an electricity bill from March to April, monthly electricity bills. If you are showing the diesel generators, we'll say how you are recording the diesel consumption. If you are showing many of the meters available for the energy as well as for flow of fuels, and we say, can you show me the energy meter readings? Can you show me the calibration certificate of those energy meetings? If you are using any renewables, then we say, can you show me the renewable purchase reports? How much quantity of renewable is being used, whether you are giving back the renewables to the grid. So that evidence we will be checking. For GHG emissions, component 2, we will be checking mostly on the fuel invoices, electricity invoices, emission factors being used, whether the latest emission factors are used or not. When it comes to water consumption, water bills, you are using any borewell, any logbooks related to borewell water consumption, flow meter records, STP, WTP records, as well as the calibration records of those meters. The waste management, we look at with how the waste is being disposed, if there are any manifests available for waste disposal. recycler certificates, hazardous waste records, invoices for waste vendors and all. Employee well-being, we'll be checking the HR policies, employee benefits documented, any grievance records. Gender diversity and inclusion, mostly we'll be checking the employee master data, diversity statistics, hiring records. In supply chain, we will look for whether there is a supply chain code of conduct available with the company or not, whether the supplier evaluation is being done, assessment is being done, whether vendor declarations are being done properly or not. If you are doing any of the training and development, what are the training attendance sheets we will be checking, certificates, learning, any records, video, photographs, written evidence or that the training has been conducted for the employees. For business ethics, so we'll be checking mostly the code of conduct of acknowledgements, investigation reports. For data traceability, we will be asking the extracts from the ERP, source logs, spreadsheets, and approval reports. So these are in basically for the BRSR code, some of the documents which we will be asking for. Some people also show us the BRSR non-parameters, as Mr. Rahul has shown you about the leadership indicators. Along with the essential indicators, some of the leadership indicators are also being shown, though they don't come under the core and non-core. For that, for example, biodiversity initiatives, waste reduction programs, renewable energy initiatives, employee wellness programs, ethics training, stakeholder engagement practices, ESG awareness programs, supplier sustainability initiatives, responsible sourcing practices, customer satisfaction measures, sustainable procurement awarenesses, life cycle assessment, all these things we will be covering under the non-core parameter, which is not mandatory. In case it's available, we will be covering that. This is what, in a nutshell, as an auditor, we face the challenges to make the clients understand the requirements better, to make them understand the terminologies they are using are correct or not. And third is to provide a value addition in terms of understanding, in terms of disclosure, in terms of following the right principles during the audit procedure. So if I have to summarize this particular presentation, I would say that yes, BRSR core is applicable for 1,000 listed companies. You have now understood the difference between a limited and a reasonable assurance. You also know that ISE 3000 revised plugged in with the AA1000 should be a best strategy to use. And you also know that you can go for an assessment or for the assurance. For the assessment, you have to go for the industry standard forums guidelines. There is no particularly mentioned standard for that. There is a technical guidance which has been published by SEBI. You can go with that technical guidance, where it mentions about what all should be included in a BRSR report and what principles should be followed. And yeah, for the BRSR 1,000 listed companies, reasonable is mandatory, and the principles being followed for the assurance or the assessments is transparency, comprehensiveness, accountability, consistency, conservativeness is being mainly checked by the auditors. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Pardon me, I was a bit slow trying to cover the time. We still have 20 minutes for the questions. Myself and Rahul are open for the questions. Thank you so much. Any questions? I think we can see the Q&A. Perfect. Very helpful session. Thanks from Mr. Sandeepa. Thank you so much. Have any questions, we'll be happy to answer. You can write back to us in any case, any of the challenges you face while preparing BRSR reports, as well as while you require any services regarding verification for BRSR reporting and everything. EKI is available for that, and for assurance and assessments, ISSPL, which is IRQS, is always available for our clients. GHG scope 3 not mandatory, at least some of its high intensity categories. As of now, scope 3 is not mandatory as per BRSR. Scope 1 and 2 is being covered. And now they're trying to bring in the supply chain. Once that supply chain is quite clear to them, then the scope 3 will cover. Most of the companies which are covering the scope 3 as of now are doing an integrated reporting. They're also doing as per GRI, or they have an higher level of ESG standards above the BRSR requirements, and that's why they are doing scope 3 as well. And companies which are going for SBTI targets, science-based target initiatives, for them scope 3 is mandatory. What are the various ISO to be implemented for ESG apart from like ISO 14K, ISO 50K, ISO 45K? It all depends on the material topic you have. Suppose you're working on circular economy, there is an standalone certification called ISO 59001, which has come recently. Though it is not a certifiable standard, an independent statement of compliance can be provided, where the circularity rate of a company can be checked, and assurance statement, not an assurance statement, a compliance statement can be provided with the rating that this is a circularity rating of this particular company. So that's one thing. ISO 59000. ISO 37000, which is an anti-bribery management system. Most of the companies talk about governance, but when we see that the implementation on the governance part, most of them now started taking an awareness training on anti-bribery. But I think ISO 37000 anti-bribery should be one of the main point when it comes to demonstrating the compliance. So ISO 37001 and ISO 59000 are the two things. And apart from that, ISO 20400, which is the sustainable procurement. Sustainable procurement here is about, again, it's not a certifiable standard, it's a guidance document. But sustainable procurement will give you a right pathway than what you want to achieve after 5 years. In sustainable procurement, you can start with a risk assessment and cover the vendors, say whichever is a vendor which is contributing 50% as of now from upstream and downstream. You can target those high value vendors and then start giving them your supplier code of conduct. That way, in next 5 years, when BRSR gets more matured and ask you to track all your vendors, at that time, sustainable procurement with a proper framework will help you a lot. So ISO 20400, ISO 37000, ISO 20400 for sustainable procurement, ISO 37000 for anti-bribery systems, and ISO 59000 for circular economy. I personally feel add a lot of value to the companies who are looking into ESG journey. If you look at other part of ISO 1404044, which is life cycle assessment for your or the product carbon footprint, ISO 14067 will also add a value, because once you do the ISO 14067, it will give a complete DNA of your product and also shows the low hanging fruits. The low hanging fruits, I mean to say that what are the areas we need to quickly work on to minimize the emissions or the impact. It might be raw material consumption, it might be in the process, it might be in the downstream. You can sort it out if you do a life cycle assessment or a product carbon footprint, ISO 14064 or ISO 14067. If you do this along with ESG, there are a lot of parameters. If you want to show your water stewardship, you can get into zero liquid discharge. This is also one of the things which the BRSR says, that if you come under that particular company which needs to demonstrate clearly, you can work on zero liquid discharge. This will also minimize your water consumption, and that certification adds a lot of value in your ESG journey. If you want to have a management system for water, there is a water impact management system, ISO 14046. You can implement that. You can also work on zero waste to landfill. Now, waste diversion is one of the things where you can get the platinum rated zero waste to landfill certification. So there are a lot of ways to get into different certifications and proving your commitments, and as well as to demonstrate to your own clients and the investors that in particular areas or particular principles of the BRS or ESG, what exactly you have achieved, right? If you, as a company, if you show that I'm doing 95% of the diversion of waste, the client or the investor might not be feeling very happy about it. But if you say that you are a platinum rated when it comes to waste management, that clicks, saying that yes, this is something which you can put on your website and say that yes, we are doing, and that also gives a lot of confidence to your ESG team. Thank you. Hope that provided the answer. Mr. Rahul, you want to take a question on how BRSR and EcoVadis is different? Rahul, out there? Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not able to hear Rahul, but BRSR is the mandatory requirement as per the Security Exchange Board of India for 1,000 listed companies. When it comes to EcoVadis, the requirement is mostly on the supplier side. So the EcoVadis will be providing the rating on how exactly your interaction is with the suppliers and how thorough you are when it comes to showing your policies, whether you are complying with the requirements of supply chain, those all parts will come under EcoVadis. Those certain aspects overlap with EcoVadis and BRSR. EcoVadis also requires you to provide a sustainability report, but BRSR and EcoVadis has these differences. Is there any validity of the BRSR report, like what is frequency of the report? See, because BRSR report has to be provided once the financial year is completed. So every year you need to have the BRSR report. So once your uh, financial year is over, that BRSR report term will be over. So BRSR is a once in year activity. How long does the audit and certification process take for getting reasonable assurance certification? It all depends on the size of the company, right? So we say about you have 20 sites located at different part of India, and we need to do those audits. We need to divide that one with the high value, high production areas, people with more um, workforce. So we will be dividing that. There will be physical audits, there will be online audits, data review, desktop review will be done. So it all depends on the size of the company and number of sites you have. So number of mandates will vary. So usually it will should not take more than 30 to 45 working days to complete a BRSR reasonable assurance. Is IRQS planning to conduct an auditor training program on BRSR? When, fees, duration? Yes, we would like to do it. If more number of participants, we do that for the company specific. If you have about 10 plus participants in the company, we can do it on site at your company. Or we will also thought about doing a 2 days program on how to do the BRSR verification. What is the periodicity of BRSR assurance report? I say it's 1 year within which the report will be given by assurance providers. So validity of the assurance is also for 1 year. So could you please repeat which ISO is aligned with zero waste to landfill? Zero waste to landfill is not aligned with any of the standard. It is a standalone independent mass balance verification done by different verification bodies. So the rating criteria has been set by different verification bodies in a different way. If you ask for us as ISSPL or IRQS, if the diversion rating, if your recyclable, reusable of the waste diverted from the landfill is less than or equal to 85%, we are providing a baseline certificate. Above 85%, it's a silver certificate. Above 90%, it's a gold certificate. Above 95%, it's a platinum certificate. So it's a diversion rate you need to demonstrate. During the assurance, previous year's assurance points need to be complied. Yes, of course, it's to be complied. What was a change done from last year also should be provided. For result assurance and limited assurance, very clear. If you are, as of now, for the financial year 26 and 27, if you are coming under 1,000 listed company of SEBI's list every time comes on is displayed on 31st of December. If you look at the SEBI's website and you see that, oh, ours is a 1,000 listed company under SEBI, then you have to do BRSR core reasonable assurance. If you are above 1,000 listed company, you can voluntarily opt for the limited assurance. Is there any validity of the BRSR report? Like what is the frequency? I already covered this. BRSR report validity is 1 year. Frequency, the validity of the verification assurance statement is also 1 year. What is the minimum standards can be certified for BRSR as a minimum requirement? See, the minimum standard, I could say there is no minimum standard, whether ISAE 3000 revised is the one which, if you want to call it as a minimum standard, that's a minimum standard. If you want to go with an assessment, then Industry Standard Forum has come up with their guidance document, which SEBI has approved. So we have to go with that. I'm looking forward to becoming an auditor for BRSR reporting assurance. What is the prerequisite? I am not the right person to answer this. Of course, I'm heading the department, but I need to check with my certification team what is the requirement for that. And I have not seen any requirement as such from the SEBI to become an auditor. One thing is very much important, that a person has to be independent. You don't have to have any relationship with the client. in terms of any of the reports provided, services provided, or any of the direct or indirect relationship with the client. So if you can assure you are independent and there is no conflict of interest with the client whom you are going as to verify BRSR parameters, then you can be an BRSR auditor. We have 10 more minutes to go. I'll be happy to answer more questions. I hope this particular session has added a value, and I was trying to be quick. Pardon me for my quick thing, because I wanted to give time for the question and answers. And I also not wanted to go back deep dive in explaining all the tables and the presentations, because what you need in a webinar is value addition. What am I going to take home with this webinar? That, okay, what is the requirement? Where am I standing? Who are the service providers? What is the difference between a verification, assessment, and assurance? What is limited and reasonable assurance? What are the principles followed by the auditors? What are the minimum documents being asked by the auditors? What are the best AI data management tool that is used in ESG report preparation, like BRSR, GRI, and CSRD? To be frank, I'm not sure about the AI data management tools, but there are a lot of companies providing their ESG softwares, which you can plug in with your existing SAP. So yeah, that's what people are doing. And there are AI being used to update the emission factors automatically and to compile your data. For example, if you're a company having 20 to 50 sites located in different part of India or different part of the world, it will be very difficult for you to communicate what data needs to be gathered. So with this AI integrated software tool, the concerned person will be able to add a data, automatically emission factor will be added to it, final graph will come, so that data integration and representation becomes quite easy with the software. But I don't know of any AI data specific, but I have seen software being used by the companies as an tool which can integrate this data. Any questions? Perfect. We have 7 more minutes to go. If you have any questions after this particular webinar, you can write it down to if you can check the chat box. Mr. Naveen Gupta has given an email ID. You can write his questions to him. If you are looking for any services, for example, I could see somebody is looking at ISO 20400 sustainable procurement. Yes, we can provide that service for you people. That there's a ISO 20400 guidance document. We will be able to provide you a statement of conformity for that. What is the penalty if BRSR report is not doing assurance? I'm not sure about that. Pardon me for that. I can check with the BRSR and SEBI website and I can get back to you. Perfect. EKI also has got the AI powered data management system. Mr. Saurabh Jore has commented in the Q&A section. You can reach out to him if you're looking for any of the software, ESG, BRSR software with AI assistance. Thanks to Satyendraji for your nice words. It was pleasure sharing whatever limited knowledge we have on BRSR, myself and Rahul. I hope it has added a value to all of you. And especially on this penalty part, I will have to check it and maybe Naveen Gupta will get back to you on that. Yes, Mr. Rahul, you would like to add anything, the final words? We still have 6 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for addressing all the queries of the participants as well. So yeah, so thank you everyone for participating in the session, for asking the queries. Just one more thing, anyone who wants to learn about these things, just go to the websites of the public listed companies who falls into top 1000. Go through their reports and try to understand that how they are reporting on the frameworks and all. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Okay, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rahul, for your valuable contribution. So much. So if no more questions, then we can close it for the day. Thank you so much again. We'll keep on hosting the webinars. You can write back to us on what next webinar you would like to hear from us. We will do a polling later on that front. Maybe you can write back to us saying that this is a webinar or the information you would like to get in that side and value. We will love to take that up for you people as the next webinar. Thank you so much. Good evening. Take care. And thanks for joining with us. Thank you so much. Take care.